Okay, so it looks like you guys are sending in some questions about fleas.
Yeah.
And I gotta admit, I get a little itchy just thinking about it.
Oh, yeah. It's definitely not a fun topic.
We're diving deep into an article today from Simple Pest Management called Recognizing a Flea Infestation, Key Signs You Can't Ignore.
So we're going to be like flea detectives today.
Exactly. So what is the first sign that we should be looking for?
One of the first and most obvious signs is something called flea dirt.
Flea dirt.
Yeah, it might look like just regular dirt, but it's actually digested blood.
Okay, so if I see like a little black speck, how do I know if it's just dirt or if it's the remains of a flea feast?
Well, that's the interesting part. You can take like a damp white cloth and wipe it on the suspicious speck.
Okay.
And if it leaves a reddish-brown streak, you've got flea dirt.
Ew, okay, that's definitely going on my to-do list, like right after this deep dive.
Yeah, and even if you don't see those fleas themselves, there are other signs that
Okay.
they've moved in. Like, think about your pet's behavior. Have you noticed any, like, excessive scratching?
Well, now that you mention it, my dog has been scratching a lot lately, but I just thought it was like, the season's changing.
It could be, but, excessive scratching, especially if it's, like, a new thing,
Right.
that's, like, a major red flag
Yeah.
for fleas. And it's not just dogs.
Okay.
Cats get itchy, too.
Right.
But they might show it differently, like over-grooming, or they seem really restless.
Okay, so that's not just like, oh, they're being a little bit itchy. Like, that's actually a sign that something's wrong.
Exactly.
And if we ignore it,
It can lead to bigger problems.
oh no.
Like skin irritation, hair loss, or even infection.
Oh, that's no good.
Yeah.
So what about humans, though? Are we safe from these little vampires?
Not necessarily.
Oh, no.
You know those mysterious bites on your ankles or legs?
Yeah.
It might not be mosquitoes. It
Uh.
might be fleas.
Okay.
Flea bites on humans, they often appear in clusters
Uh-huh.
and have a red halo around them.
Okay.
And since fleas love to hang out where our pets do.
It makes sense that we might end up as their next meal.
Oh, that makes total sense because, my dog loves to be on the couch with me. And sometimes I'm like, why am I so itchy?
Yeah, exactly.
So we got the dirt, we get the scratch and the bites. It's like we're on CSI, but for fleas.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And speaking of investigations,
Okay.
let's talk about the flea life cycle.
All right.
Those tiny specks of flea dirt we talked about, that's just the beginning.
Uh-oh.
They hatch into larvae, which then spin cocoons and eventually turn into adult fleas.
Oh, that's gross.
Yeah, ready to jump, bite, and start the cycle all over again.
So it's not just getting rid of like the fleas that we see. We've got to like break this whole cycle.
Exactly.
So what happens if we just ignore it?
Well, ignoring a flea infestation is like giving them an all-access pass to your home and your pet.
Okay. I am convinced we need a plan of attack.
Yes.
What are our options here?
Well, there are a lot of things you can do to fight back,
Okay.
both on your own and with professional help.
Okay.
Let's start with some DIY tactics.
Right. One of the simplest and most effective is using a flea comb.
A flea comb.
Yeah, regular combing can help you spot those pesky adults
Okay.
and remove them before they lay more eggs.
It's like a miniature flea safari.
Exactly. And while you're on that safari, keep an eye out for flea eggs.
Flea eggs? Oh, great. What do those look like?
They're tiny and white, about the size of a grain of sand.
Perfect. Another thing to add to my list.
Yeah.
Where do they like to hide?
They can be anywhere, really, but they're particularly fond of carpets,
Okay.
bedding, and any cozy spots your pet favors.
So basically my whole house
Yeah.
is a potential flea nursery.
Hmm.
What's the best way to evict these tiny tenants?
Your vacuum is about to become your new best friend.
Okay.
Regular vacuuming, especially in high-traffic areas, is essential.
Okay.
And don't forget to empty that vacuum bag afterwards.
Right. Yeah. Don't give them a free ride back into the house.
Exactly.
What else can we do besides the vacuuming? Is it time to bring out the big guns?
We're talking chemical warfare now. There are lots of over-the-counter sprays and powders that target both adult fleas
Okay.
and their larvae, but there's a catch.
I knew there had to be a catch. What is it?
These treatments often contain insecticides.
Okay.
So it's super important to choose a product that's safe
Right.
for your pet and follow the instructions very carefully.
Okay. Got it.
And for like a deeper clean, you can also consider steam cleaning.
Ooh.
The heat's like kryptonite to fleas, wiping out all stages of their life cycle.
So it's like a 1-2 punch vacuuming to remove the visible offenders and then hitting them with heat or insecticides to take care of the rest?
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense. But what about our furry friends, though?
Yeah.
They're the ones that are really suffering here.
Absolutely. Along with treating your home.
Okay.
It's crucial to protect your pets. We mentioned flea combs earlier,
Right.
but there are also topical treatments
Okay.
and oral medications.
Okay, so there are options. How do I know what's right for my pet?
That's where your vet comes in.
Of course.
They can recommend the best product based on your pet's species, their age, their weight, and their overall health.
Okay.
And they can also make sure it's safe
Right.
for any other pets in your household.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
I think that's always the advice we should give people is to talk to their vet about that stuff.
Yes, definitely.
We've covered a lot of ground here,
We have.
but I'm sure there's more to this flea fighting saga.
Yes, there is.
What else should we know?
Well, let's dive a little deeper into the different types of flea treatments available for pets' topical treatments.
Okay.
For example, they're applied directly to your pet's skin, usually between the shoulder blades where they can't lick it off.
So it's like a force field against fleas.
Exactly.
How does that work?
They typically contain insecticides that kill adult fleas on contact.
Mm-hmm.
Some also have ingredients that prevent flea eggs from hatching,
Okay.
so effectively breaking the life cycle.
That's pretty clever. But what if my pet's like a world-class licker? Are there other options?
There are. That's where oral medications come in. These are like chewable tablets or capsules that work from the inside out.
Okay.
Once ingested, the medication enters your pet's bloodstream
Okay.
and kills fleas when they bite.
Ah, so it's like turning your pet's blood into flea poison.
Right.
What's the catch with this method?
Well, some oral medications target the nervous system of fleas,
Okay.
essentially paralyzing and killing them.
Got it.
Others work by disrupting the flea's life cycle, preventing them from reproducing.
Wow, there's like a lot of science going on here.
There is.
Okay, so we've got topical treatments,
Yep.
oral medications, anything else?
There are also flea collars, which release insecticides that repel and kill fleas.
Okay.
But it's important to note that not all collars are created equal.
Right.
Some are more effective than others,
Uh-huh.
and some can be irritating to your pet's skin.
Yeah. Okay, so did your research choose a collar that's safe and effective?
Exactly.
Got it.
Yeah.
I have to admit, I'm starting to feel a little overwhelmed with all these options.
I understand it can be a lot to take in, but the good news is that you don't have to figure it all out on your own.
Right.
Your vet can help you
Good.
navigate the world of flea treatments and choose the best approach for your furry friend.
Okay, I'm feeling a little bit better now. I'm a little less stressed.
Hmm.
But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Yeah.
I want to touch on something we briefly mentioned earlier.
Okay.
The potential health risks associated with flea infestations.
Right.
It's not just the itching.
Right. You're absolutely right. Fleas can be more than just a nuisance.
Yeah.
They can also pose serious health risks
Okay.
to both pets and humans.
Like what?
One of the most common concerns for pets is tapeworms.
Tapeworms.
Fleas can carry tapeworm larvae,
Oh, ew.
and if your pet accidentally ingests an infected flea while grooming,
Right.
they can become infected with tapeworms.
That is disgusting. How do you even know if your pet has tapeworms?
You might see small white segments of the worm in their stool or around their anus.
Okay.
They might also experience weight loss vomiting or diarrhea. It's not pretty.
That does not sound good.
No.
So if you suspect your pet has tapeworms, a trip to the vet is definitely in order.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, so tapeworms are a big no-no.
Yes.
What else should we be aware of?
Another concern is something called flea allergy dermatitis.
Flea allergy dermatitis.
This is an allergic reaction to flea saliva,
Okay.
and it can cause intense itching hair loss and skin infections in pets.
Oh, no.
In severe cases, it can even lead to anemia,
Oh.
which is a serious condition where the body doesn't have enough red blood cells.
Oh, poor pups. And what about humans?
Yeah.
Are we just at risk for those itchy bites, or can fleas, like, mess with our health, too?
Well, while less common,
Okay.
fleas can transmit diseases to humans as well.
Okay.
One of the most serious is plague, although it's thankfully very rare in developed countries.
Okay, good.
They can also spread murine typhus,
Marine typhus.
a bacterial infection that can cause fever, headache, and muscle aches.
I had no idea fleas could be so dangerous. This is definitely a wake-up call to, like, take flea prevention seriously.
Exactly. It's much easier to prevent a flea infestation than to deal with one after it's taken hold.
Well, I'm feeling a lot more informed and a lot less itchy now that we've had this chat.
Good.
But there's still so much more to explore
Absolutely. We've just scratched the surface.
of this flea-fighting world.
Yes.
I see what you did there in the next part of our deep dive.
Yes.
We'll delve deeper into those DIY solutions we touched on earlier, as well as when it's time to call in the professionals.
Yes.
We'll also explore the different types of flea treatments available for your pets and how to choose the right one.
Sounds good.
So stay tuned, folks.
Yes.
We'll be right back after a short break.
See you soon. So before the break, we were talking about how fleas can be dangerous to our pets and even us.
Right, it's not just about, like, the itchy bites.
Yeah.
But let's shift gears a little bit. We've talked about recognizing the problem and, like, treatment.
Right.
But what about, like, preventing these guys from moving in the first place?
Prevention is key.
Yeah.
You think of it as building a fortress against these tiny invaders.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
So how do we build this fortress?
Well, one of the most important bricks in your fortress is year-round flea preventative medication for your pet.
Okay, even if I don't see any fleas.
Yes, even if you don't see any fleas.
Why?
Because remember those pupas we talked about?
Yeah.
They can hang out in your home for months just waiting for the perfect moment to hatch.
Oh, wow.
And even if there aren't any hiding in your home, your pet can easily pick them up from the environment,
Okay.
especially during warmer months.
So it's like a constant invisible threat.
Yeah.
What else can we do to, like, reinforce our defenses?
Keeping a clean and tidy home is another essential part of your flea fighting strategy.
Good.
Regular vacuuming, especially in areas where your pet likes to hang out, is a must.
So vacuuming is like sweeping the battlefield. What about washing?
Absolutely. Washing your pet's bedding weekly in hot water is like launching a full-scale attack on any flea eggs or larvae lurking in the fabric.
Okay. And what about, like, our own bedding, too, just in case some of those fleas jumped on us?
That's a good idea, especially if your pet shares your bed.
Right.
Don't forget about the great outdoors.
Okay.
Your yard can be a haven for fleas, so keeping it tidy, trimming tall grass, removing any debris can help make it less inviting.
So it's like we're just making a hostile environment for fleas.
Exactly.
Just make them feel unwelcome.
Yes.
Any other tips for keeping these little guys away?
Be mindful of where your pet spends their time.
Okay.
If they love, like, exploring wooded areas or, like, rolling around in tall grass, they're more likely to encounter fleas. So
Oh, yeah.
regular checks for those telltale signs we discussed earlier are crucial.
Got it. So be vigilant, keep things clean, use that preventative medication.
Yes,
That sounds like a pretty solid plan.
it is.
But what if, despite our best efforts, we still have, like, a flea situation happening? What are our options then?
Well, as we mentioned earlier, there are DIY approaches and professional help.
Right.
So let's talk about those DIY solutions in more detail.
Okay, so let's say I've spotted some of those telltale signs we talked about. The flea dirt, the excessive scratching, maybe even some bites on my own ankles. What's, like, my first move?
Your first line of defense is treating your pet. We talked about flea corms,
Right.
which are great for removing adult fleas and eggs.
Okay.
But you'll likely also want to consider a topical treatment or oral medication.
Right.
These products work by killing adult fleas and preventing them from laying more eggs.
So it's like a two-pronged attack, removing existing fleas and then using medication to stop, like, the cycle.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense.
Right.
But how do I choose the right treatment? There's so many options out there. It's like flea product overload.
You're right. The sheer number of choices can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
The best approach is to talk to your vet.
Of course.
They can recommend a product based on your pet's species, their age, their weight, their overall health, and they'll also make sure it's safe for any other furry family members in your home.
Right. Solid advice. I'm all for, like, expert guidance when it comes to my pet's health.
Yeah.
What about the house itself? We talked about vacuuming.
Yeah.
Are there other things we can do to target those pesky fleas that might be hiding in carpets or furniture or bedding? What about those sprays and powders you mentioned earlier?
Absolutely. Those are definitely part of the DIY arsenal.
Okay.
Sprays and powders can be effective, especially for targeting fleas in those hard-to-reach areas.
Okay.
The key is to choose a product that's safe for your pet and your family and to follow the instructions carefully.
Safety first.
Yeah.
So how do these sprays and powders actually work?
They typically contain insecticides that kill adult fleas
Okay.
and sometimes larvae.
Uh-huh.
Some also contain insect growth regulators, which are chemicals that disrupt the flea's life cycle,
Okay.
preventing them from maturing and reproducing.
So it's like a double whammy, killing the existing fleas and then preventing, like, future generations from taking over.
Exactly.
Are there any, like, natural alternatives to, like, the chemical sprays?
There are. Diatomaceous earth is a popular natural option.
Diatomaceous earth.
It's a powder made from fossilized algae,
Okay.
and it works by dehydrating fleas and their eggs.
Wait, fossilized algae. That sounds kind of strange. Is it safe?
It is, but it's important to get the food-grade variety, as the type used for pool filters can be harmful to pets,
Oh, okay.
and make sure to follow the instructions carefully.
Got it. So we've got the vacuuming, the sprays, the powders, the diatomaceous earth.
Yeah,
It sounds like we are armed and ready for battle.
we are.
But what about those really stubborn infestations? Are there times when DIY just isn't enough?
You're right. Sometimes those fleas are just too persistent,
Yeah.
or the infestation is too widespread for DIY methods to be fully effective.
Okay.
That's when it might be time to call in the professionals.
So when is it time to wave the white flag and bring in the cavalry?
If you've been diligently treating your pet and your home for a few weeks, and
Oh.
you're still seeing signs of fleas, it's probably a good idea to call in a professional pest control company.
Okay,
Yeah.
so what can they do that we can't do at home?
They have access to stronger insecticides and specialized equipment that can reach those deep, dark places where fleas love to hide.
Oh.
They can also assess the situation, identify the source of the infestation, and develop a customized treatment plan.
So it's like having a flea-fighting SWAT team on your side.
Exactly.
That's reassuring.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, even with all of these weapons in our arsenal, I'm still a little creeped out by these tiny creatures just like lurking around.
I understand it can be unsettling, but remember, knowledge is power.
Right.
Now that we understand how fleas operate and how to fight back, we're in a much better position to win the war against these pesky invaders.
You're right. And speaking of knowledge, I'm curious to hear more about those potential health risks you mentioned.
Okay.
We talked about tapeworms and flea allergy dermatitis in pets, and even the possibility of fleas transmitting diseases to humans.
Right.
But let's dive a little deeper into those topics.
Absolutely. Let's start with tapeworms.
Okay.
These nasty parasites can cause a range of problems for pets, from weight loss and digestive issues to more serious complications if left untreated.
Oh, that's no good. So what exactly are tapeworms and how do they end up in our pets?
Tapeworms are flat, segmented worms that live in the intestines of animals, including dogs and cats.
Oh,
They
yeah.
can grow quite long, sometimes several inches or even feet.
That is a mental image I could have lived without. So how do they get there?
Well, as we discussed earlier, fleas can carry tapeworm larvae.
Right.
If your pet ingests an infected flea while grooming,
Right.
those larvae can develop into adult tapeworms in their intestines.
So fleas are like little Trojan horses carrying these parasites into our pets.
Exactly.
What are the signs of a tapeworm infection?
You might see small white segments of the worm in your pet's stool or around their anus.
Okay.
They might also scoot their bottom along the ground, trying to relieve the itching caused by the worms.
That sounds really uncomfortable. Are there any other signs we should watch for?
Yes, your pet might experience weight loss, vomiting, or diarrhea. If you notice any of these signs, it's important to take your pet to the vet for treatment.
Okay. Tapeworms, definitely something we want to avoid.
Yes.
What about flea allergy dermatitis? You mentioned it can cause like intense itching and skin problems in pets.
That's right. Flea allergy dermatitis is an allergic reaction to flea saliva.
Okay.
It's one of the most common skin diseases in dogs and cats.
So it's not the bite itself, it's like the flea's saliva that triggers the reaction.
Exactly. When a flea bites, it injects saliva into the skin,
Okay.
which contains various proteins and enzymes.
Uh-huh.
In pets with flea allergy dermatitis, their immune system overreacts to these substances,
Okay.
leading to inflammation and irritation.
So it's like their body's like waging war against these tiny bites.
Right.
What are the symptoms of flea allergy dermatitis?
The most obvious sign is intense itching.
Okay.
You might see your pet scratching, licking, or chewing at their skin, especially around the base of the tail, the back legs, and belly.
My dog loves to chew on our feet. Could that be a sign?
It could be other symptoms include hair loss, redness, scabs, and even open sores.
Oh no.
In severe cases, the skin can become thickened and infected.
That sounds painful. Is there anything we can do to help pets with flea allergy dermatitis?
The first step is to eliminate the fleas.
Okay.
This might involve using a combination of flea control methods like those we've discussed earlier.
Right.
Your vet can also prescribe medications to relieve the itching and inflammation.
So it's a two-pronged approach. Get rid of the fleas and then manage the allergic reaction.
Exactly.
That makes sense. Now let's talk about the elephant in the room. The risk of fleas transmitting diseases to humans.
Okay.
You mentioned plague and murine typhus, which sound pretty scary.
They are serious diseases.
Yeah.
But it's important to emphasize that flea-borne illnesses are relatively rare in developed countries,
Okay, good.
thanks to modern sanitation and pest control measures.
That's reassuring, but it's still good to be aware of the risks.
It is.
So what exactly is plague and how do fleas transmit it?
Plague is a bacterial infection caused by Yersinia pestis.
Okay. It's primarily a disease of rodents, but fleas can transmit it to humans if they bite an infected animal.
So fleas are like the bridge between the rodents and humans.
Right.
What are the symptoms of plague?
There are three main forms of plague: bubonic, septicemic, and pneumonic.
Okay.
Bubonic plague is the most common, and it causes swollen lymph nodes, fever, chills, headache.
Okay.
Septicemic plague affects the blood,
Okay.
and pneumonic plague affects the lungs.
Those sound like serious conditions. What about murine typhus?
Murine typhus is a bacterial infection caused by Rickettsia typhi.
Okay.
It's also transmitted by fleas, typically those that infest rats.
Okay.
The symptoms include fever, headache, muscle aches, and a rash.
So while the risk of contracting these diseases from fleas is relatively low, it's still important to take precautions.
Absolutely. Preventing flea infestations is the best way to protect yourself and your family from these potential health risks.
We've covered a lot of ground today.
We have from recognizing the signs of a flea infestation to understanding the different treatment options, the flea life cycle, and the potential health risks. We've delved deep into the fascinating world of these tiny but formidable creatures.
We've certainly been on a flea fighting journey, but before we conclude,
Okay.
I want to leave our listeners with some final thoughts and key takeaways to help them win the war against fleas.
Sounds good. Let's wrap things up and empower our listeners to be proactive in their flea fighting efforts. All right, so we're back, and we are armed with knowledge to fight those pesky fleas.
We are ready for battle.
So what is like the #1 piece of advice that you can give to our listeners to help them be victorious against these tiny invaders?
I would say the golden rule of flea control is vigilance.
Okay.
Remember, fleas are masters of disguise and persistence. They can be incredibly sneaky, so staying one step ahead is really crucial.
So it's all about being proactive and observant. What are some like practical steps that our listeners can take to maintain that vigilance?
Regular checks are key. Make it a habit to examine your pet's fur for those telltale signs of fleas. Look for flea dirt, those tiny black specks that we talked about that turn red when wet. Pay close attention to any excessive scratching, licking, or biting.
It's like becoming a flea detective.
Exactly.
What else should we be on the lookout for?
Keep an eye on your pet's favorite hangouts. Check their bedding carpets and any furniture they frequent for signs of fleas or flea dirt.
Okay.
Remember, early detection is your best defense.
Right.
The sooner you spot a problem, the easier it will be to contain and eliminate it.
Makes sense. It's much easier to deal with a few fleas than like a full-blown infestation.
Right.
So regular checks are crucial. What else can we do to stay ahead of these tiny invaders?
Don't underestimate the power of cleanliness.
Okay.
Regular vacuuming, especially in areas where your pet spends a lot of time,
Right.
can help remove fleas, eggs, and larvae, disrupting their life cycle.
Okay.
Washing your pet's bedding weekly in hot water is another important step. And consider giving your own bedding a refresh, too, just in case any fleas decided to hitch a ride.
So it's like we're keeping those fleas on their toes, never letting them get too comfortable.
Exactly.
What about preventative measures? How can we stop these little guys from moving in the first place?
Year-round flea preventative medication for your pet is absolutely essential.
Okay, even if you don't see fleas.
Even if you don't see fleas.
Why?
Because remember, those pupas can be lurking in the environment, just waiting for the perfect moment to hatch.
Right. It's like having a force field around your pet, keeping those fleas at bay.
Exactly.
But what if, despite our best efforts, we still find ourselves facing a flea infestation? What's our next step?
Don't panic.
Okay, good advice.
We've discussed a range of DIY solutions, from flea combs and natural remedies like diatomaceous earth to over-the-counter sprays and powders.
Right.
The key is to choose the approach that's right for your pet and your household and to follow the instructions carefully.
And if those DIY methods aren't cutting it, or if the infestation seems particularly stubborn, don't hesitate to call in the professionals.
Exactly. Professional pest control companies have the expertise and tools to tackle even the most challenging flea infestations.
So it's like having a flea-fighting SWAT team on your side.
Yeah.
So vigilance, cleanliness, preventative measures, and knowing when to call for backup are the keys to winning the war against fleas.
Absolutely. And don't forget, your vet is a valuable resource in this battle. They can provide guidance on flea prevention and treatment options, ensuring the health and well-being of your furry friend.
Well, I think we've covered just about everything there is to know about fleas. We've gone from feeling itchy and overwhelmed to feeling informed and empowered.
Yes, knowledge is power.
It is.
Now that we understand these tiny creatures and their sneaky ways, we're well equipped to keep them out of our homes and off our beloved pets.
And for our listeners out there, remember, it's not just about protecting yourself and your pets from those annoying bites. It's also about safeguarding their health and well-being. Fleas can transmit diseases both to animals and humans, so taking this seriously is crucial.
Absolutely. So stay vigilant, stay informed, and stay flea-free.
That's it for today's deep dive into the world of fleas. Until next time, stay curious.